Greetings, YouTube. Today I thought I'd talk about a game mechanic that kind of bothers me and how I've been trying to work my head around how I could put it into a frame of mind that it won't bug me so much. And that is encounter powers. You probably get that from up there. Now, encounter powers are abilities that only function under specific circumstances when your player characters have an encounter. So if there are no encounters that day, those powers will never function. If you have 2 encounters that day, they will function twice. 4 encounters one day, they will function 4 times, etc., etc. And I consider that an incredibly intrusive mechanic. To me, that feels like the hand of the GM has been thrust into the game world, and it's pointing at people and saying, you cannot use your abilities at all today, but you can use them 4 times. And I feel it's a mechanic that takes place at the player table level and not in the game world. There is no in-game justification for why these abilities only function at random as far as the players are concerned. Imagine you had a pistol, and you pull the pistol trigger every 6 seconds. Okay? And some days, it does nothing. Some days, it fires twice. Some days, it fires 4 times. Some days, it fires 3. And you have no idea why it works this way. None whatsoever. There is no justification. You've torn the thing apart. You've looked at it. You've loaded it. You know it works perfectly. And yet, it operates at random. What do you do with that pistol? You throw it into an incinerator. It is a dangerous thing. It is not a tool. And that's what mechanics are. Tools. So I've never liked encounter powers for that reason. But I'm reading a book at the moment. I'm not going to spoil which one. And the game uses lots of encounter powers. Lots of them. Every single class has multiple encounter powers. You cannot take them out of the game without essentially taking the entire game and just throwing it away. And they have a lot of interesting things to say in this game, so I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to think, how can I think of these encounter powers in a way that is not feeling like the hand of the GM is being thrust down my throat? So I realized that if I thought of them as triggered events, as events that happen in reaction to something else. For example, in this particular game, Barbarian's rage ability is triggered by another person's attack, as opposed to only happening when the person feels like using it because they're in an encounter. So they're in an encounter and suddenly they can rage, but if they aren't in an encounter, they can't. Now there may be times in life when you wanted to rage, even if you're not in an encounter. But with an encounter power, you don't have that option. They will only function when you're having an encounter. So, why not make it so that the rage only functions when it has been triggered for you? So, for example, you get attacked. You are now in a situation where you can choose to turn your rage on or off. Your choice. You could respond in a level-headed, controlled manner and have a normal attack, no rage. Turning the other cheek, if you will. A strange thing for a barbarian to do, but conceivable. Or, you get into that whole frothing at the mouth, shield-biting, berserker phrase of mine, and you just cut loose and enter a rage state. And the rage state was triggered by the other opponent's attack. No in-game explanation needed. Bingo. You can't rage unless someone else hits you. And if someone doesn't hit you, no matter how much you want to rage, you can't. Which I think also has interesting role-playing aspects. And in that way, I think I have worked it in my head at least, so that encounter powers are now not an offense, not some intrusive failure of a mechanical tool, but they become another type of ability which is within the game world. Now, it does mean that you would possibly have to tweak some of the encounter powers. I don't know if I've read any in the book yet that would have to be changed significantly, because something else would have to happen. For example, a power that is triggered when you attack someone, and then you would have the option of doing something, obviously is not going to work unless you attack someone. That makes perfect sense. And so far, I really haven't encountered any situations where the encounter powers are kind of non-combat or adventurous kind of thing. There hasn't been any like social aspects yet I've encountered yet. I'm only part of the way through the book. So that may need a little tweaking, I'm not positive. But so far, all of the combat-related abilities could at least be viewed as triggered events, and I would no longer think of them as encounter powers, which is awesome, because now they wouldn't seem so incredibly mechanically clunky. Some counter powers seem incredibly clunky to me. It just seems very intrusive. Now, most people are going to think, well, why do you care about this? Well, for me, how the rules function, there needs to be a certain level of internal consistency and maybe even elegance. And to me, encounter powers are not elegant in the least. Whereas a triggered encounter, because it has an in-game explanation, there's an in-game consistency, a justification for it, seems much more elegant and much more acceptable to me. So I want to hear what people have to say on this. Do you find encounter powers annoying? Have you ever had to find a justification for them? Do you just not use them? Or do you just avoid games that have encounter powers entirely? I'd like to hear what you have to say. And of course, if you think I'm nuts because of this, I accept that as well.